Good morning and welcome to SUNUP. I am Dave Deacon, filling in for Lyndall Stout this week. And have we got a great show for you? Did you know that this is actually one of the best times of year to do a prescribed burn? Oklahoma State University's John Weir explains why. And with harvest wrapping up, producers are working the ground for the next crop. We talk with Jason Warren about the benefits of no-till and conventional till. But we start off this week with a look at the Oklahoma wheat crop with Extension Small Grain Specialist and newly named Department Head of Plant Soil Sciences, Jeff Edwards.
Well, it's been very variable this year in terms of the wheat crop. I've had reports of 20 bushel wheat with, test weights below 50 pounds per bushel. Northwestern Oklahoma, I've had a few reports out of far northwestern Oklahoma into the panhandle of 50 to 70 bushel wheat with 60 to 61 pound test weights. So it really is just all over the board. We've had a lot of low test weight wheat this year. Ideally, we're going to be 58 pounds or above, preferably around 60, 61 pounds per bushel. We've had test weights in the low 50s, even the upper 40s on some fields. It really depended on the variety, how susceptible it was to stripe rust, and also the nature of the soil in the field, how much water they received, and whether or not the field remained waterlogged during grain fill. We have had a few reports of sprouting in the head, not as much as what you would expect, though, with the amount of moisture that we have. We have some good running weather right now, high temperatures, the ground is finally drying out. We're going to make a big push over the next week to get the rest of this crop out. And if we do that, I don't expect much additional sprout injury. Well, last year we were dealing with just an extreme drought throughout the growing season, and certainly that influenced our yields. We grew less than half of a normal crop. This year we were setting ourselves up for the exact same thing. We were so dry during February and March. We got some rain. It looks like we were going to have a great recovery, but the rain just kept coming. I didn't think it would hurt us quite as much as it did, but we stayed waterlogged during grain fill, and that is what has really affected our test weight and our yield. A wet year will always fool you the wrong direction. You'll always think it's going to do more than what it was going to. Last year we had no foliar disease. This year we had extreme stripe rust pressure. A great example of that would be peat, which is very susceptible to stripe rust. At Chickasha, without a fungicide, made around 10 bushels per acre. With the fungicide, made around 70 bushels per acre. So for some of those varieties that are super susceptible to stripe rust, it was devastating. Well, right now we have a good profile of moisture on most of our soils. Some of our producers will try and take advantage of that by growing double crop beans or a double crop grain sorghum. Others that are planning to just continue to go with wheat in a continuous wheat rotation need to hold on to that moisture this summer. Control weeds in a timely fashion. If you're doing tillage operations, try and keep those tillage operations shallow to preserve that subsoil moisture. 2014 taught us that makes the difference in a dry year. That's make or break in a dry year. The other reason, if that's not enough incentive to control those summer weeds, is to in fact control grasses in the field. We had a lot of wheat streak mosaic show up this year, and we have to kill those grasses during the summer to make sure we break that green bridge.
We're talking no-till versus conventional with our extension soil specialist, Jason Warren. And Jason, let's just start off by talking about, is there an advantage to conventional tilling?
I have to say, for those that utilize conventional tillage, most of them have been doing it for a long time. And so one advantage you could think about is their knowledge. They know how to do that. Whereas if they were wanting to go to no-till, or if a person converts to no-till, they need to gain some knowledge. They need to gain knowledge on equipment, how to get the seed in the ground without tillage, herbicides, and all those things that really make no-till successful.
Now, are there certain crops that do better with no-till or with conventional?
Certainly this one we were standing next to, any summer crop we've observed does very well under no-till. It's only really a question of getting the seed in the ground and getting the crop out of the ground, and once that happens, no-till is generally more successful. On average, summer crops, particularly corn, sorghum, soybeans, cotton, given that you do a good job of controlling the weeds, they'll perform very well under no-till versus conventional tillage in most of the state, and in some areas it'd be about the same.
So a lot of producers are conventional tillers, and so is it difficult to make that transition from conventional to no-till?
I can't say it'd be easy, unless you're a young person trying to get into production and have a long, horizon where you're going to farm, because it is expensive. You're talking about heavy drills and planters. They're very expensive, perhaps sprayers, that they're going to have a lot of upfront costs that you're going to have to depreciate out over time. So it's going to cost you money. In contrast, an older producer who's been farming for years, or maybe has all the tillage equipment, it's hard to sell all that and then reinvest when you may be interested in moving on to something else within 5 or 10 years. Nowadays it's getting a lot easier, I think, than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when some of our oldest no-till producers were doing it, because they essentially had to do it themselves. But nowadays we have a good extension team, good county educators out in the counties that know how to help producers adopt no-till, and then neighbors. In most every county you can find a no-till producer, and they're generally willing to visit with you about how they do things, and really how to farm under no-till management in that area, if you're willing to ask them.
So if a producer isn't ready to make that 100% commitment to conventional or to no-tilling, is there a way for them to have a minimal no-till operation?
When you ask that question, what comes to mind is, finding one of these neighbors that are utilizing no-till, and maybe contracting them to plant your farm or to spray a quarter or something like that, just to see how your field's going to respond, because everybody wants to kind of know what's it going to do on my farm. And you can look across the fence at what he's getting done, think, I kind of like that, or I'd like to see how that performs on my field. And then you maybe contract them to do it on your farm and see how it goes for a couple years until you start to commit capital investment into the equipment yourself.
So if a producer makes that switch from conventional to no-till, how far down the road will they be able to see the results?
Yeah, well, I would say one of the immediate results, of course, you're going to reduce your erosion, and that's as soon as you stop tilling the ground in the summertime, you're going to have a significant reduction in the erosion, which is good. Generally, when we start talking about soil health, the structure of the soil, the biology of the soil, we think we start to see some things about 3 years, and certainly after 5 years. And what we see in most of our data that's available to evaluate this is it's going to be in the summer crop. So those first couple years, you may or may not see a benefit to your summer crops, but 3 to 5 years out, you're really going to start seeing the summer crops perform better.
Okay, great information. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Heat, rain, rain, heat. From the discussion of weather, both have been on folks' minds this week. On the east side of the state, they have been dealing with extreme heat and flooding. Wednesday afternoon gives us a good idea why heat has been important this week. This has been a week to be caught off guard. A map of air temperatures from Wednesday at 1:40 p.m. doesn't look too bad. The highest air temperature was 95 at Medford. Over on the east border of the state, temperatures were in the upper 80s and low 90s. But those temperatures mask the real heat risk. Apparent temperature is one heat index. It is air temperature adjusted by the relative humidity. The apparent temperature on Wednesday at 1:40 was in the upper 90s and low 100s for eastern Oklahoma. Broken Bow had an air temperature of 91, but to a person outside it felt like 106 in Broken Bow. That's a 15-degree difference between air temperature and the heat index. The heat index indicates the real risk of human heat stress. Another human heat index tool is the new wet bulb globe temperature. This has been added to the Mesonet's air temperature section. At 1:40 p.m., Broken Bow had a wet bulb globe temperature of 93 degrees. Wet bulb globe temperatures of 90 or higher are considered extreme risk. When the wet bulb globe temperature is 90 or higher, the U.S. Army recommends 10 minutes of rest every hour under easy work situations. Rest time should be increased when carrying heavier loads and for older individuals. Wet bulb globe temperatures takes into account air temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, cloud cover, and sun angle to calculate the heat stress from working outdoors in the full sun. There are a lot of ways to cover the rain. One way is to check on the reservoir and lake levels. As of June 22nd, only 3 lakes had less than a full conservation pool. Foss Lake at 75%, Canton Lake at 70%, and Skiatook Lake at 94%. Oklahoma's full lakes are from all the rain over the last 60 days. The percent of normal for Oklahoma's climate division was record-setting. 6 of Oklahoma's 9 climate divisions had record-setting rainfall amounts through June 24th. They were the highest since 1921 with more than twice their normal rainfall. Folks in the South Central Climate Division experienced 3 times their normal rainfall. Intense rainfall from June 18th through the 24th really pushed up the totals. Newport recorded 10.5 inches over these 7 days. This rain caused road closures, tragic fatalities, and flooding along the Red River. On a map of the rainfall amounts over the last 60 days through Wednesday afternoon, the purple areas indicated where amounts were over 30 inches. The highest Mesonet site was Tishmingo at 36 7/10 inches. The lowest was Boise City with 7 6/10 inches of rain. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Mesonet Weather Report.
You may not think June and July to be the best time of year to actually burn, but John, there's some burning opportunities.
You bet. We've been promoting a lot of growing season burns the last several years for a couple of reasons. A lot of times, again, we got that traditional burn season everybody thinks of that's typically late winter, early spring, that February, March, April time frame. A lot of times you hear from a lot of the landowners and stuff that, we just don't have time to get all those burns. The weather conditions just aren't the greatest. We have, that time of year, the weather conditions are unstable. A lot of changing weather fronts coming through and things like that, so it makes getting the burns in very difficult. And so you hear that. And so one of the things we started working on is trying to open that burn window up, so we can get more burning done, get more on the ground. And doing that is burning during the growing season. That'd be this time of year. We're calling growing season from like May till September, that time frame. Green stuff will burn. A lot of times people think, well, you can't get anything green to burn. The green vegetation actually will not burn. What you're wanting to burn is the old growth from previous years. So you've got to have that old growth to get the fire started. Then once that fire gets going, that heat from that old growth will help boil all the water out of that current new growth, which will then catch on fire and be consumed. And so green grass and green vegetation will burn. And also, surprisingly, a lot of our growing green vegetation that we have a lot of oils and stuff in them. They are very flammable. It's surprising to see what a lot of that stuff, how it does burn and how it does react to fire. But a lot of the benefits of burning during the growing season the fires are a lot safer to contain and control because of all the green that's there, so it makes the flames a lot shorter. They're not as intense, they don't move as fast across the landscape as a dormant season burn does. And so that makes control and containment a whole lot easier, reduces a lot of risk, but also at the same time we're able to see the same kind of benefits. You know, we're controlling the same amount of cedar trees with growing season burns as we are burning in the dormant season, even with those smaller, lighter fires that you think, well, I don't think it's doing anything.
Right.
That heat is there, and it really does. It controls them really well, does a really good job in the growing season. We're, you know, again, got great benefits for wildlife, because again, you're creating that mosaic, patchy type burn. Also, you're burning at different seasons of the year, so different plants respond to different things. Again, also with livestock, we're seeing great responses for livestock production, because again, a lot of times everybody's burning in that springtime so they can get that flush of green growth, get that keyed up so you can get high nutritional level. We're doing that. Well, we're seeing the same thing by burning in July, August. As soon as you burn, plants regrow, high nutritional plains, so you can peak that nutrition again even in the middle of the summer, when a lot of times that native vegetation is declining down towards the middle and end of summer.
Talk about some of the fact sheets that you have on prescribed burns.
We've got numerous fact sheets on prescribed burning. We've got two really good ones on growing season burns. One is growing season burns, and the other one is what is the best time of year to burn. And it talks about the pros and cons of burning year round or burning just in one season of the year, how that can limit what you're going to do and some of the things, and then compare it to burning year round and opening that time frame and that window up. Then we also have other fact sheets on talking about fire breaks, fire planning, you know, just how to use fire, as well as we've got two really good videos, one on fire effects and one on the use of fire here in Oklahoma.
Thank you much, John Weir. And for a link to those fact sheets, you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
One of the most costly nuisances that we have in the cow-calf industry every summer is eye infections. We know if a cow gets a bad eye infection that we probably are having less milk production. She may have some lowered body condition just because she's not eating as much as she should, and that could eventually lead to situations where we have reduced reproduction later on. Research has shown us that a calf, a spring-born calf out here on summer pasture that gets an eye infection, on the average will wean about 21 pounds lighter than counterparts that don't experience eye infections. So if we're having a situation this summer where we have a large incidence of eye infections in our herd, we want to visit with our veterinarian about the possible treatments that might be available, including some antibiotics or some vaccines. But what I really want to concentrate on today are some management ideas that I think in the long term can improve our situation in terms of eye infections in our herd. Research done at Iowa State University about 10 years ago indicated that there's a genetic factor involved with eye infections in cattle. They listed the heritability of actually getting an eye infection at about 0.18, and that's something that we would call low to moderately heritable. That tells me that over a long period of time, we can make some progress in our herd by not keeping back heifers that are from cows that had a history of eye infections. It's not going to be something that cures the problem immediately, but over a long period of time, we can help ourselves. Also, in that particular research, they examined the tears of cattle that had eye infections and found that there was a relationship between the concentration of immunoglobulin A. That's just one of the antibodies that is present in all cattle. But there was a relationship between the amount of that in the tears and the incidence of eye infections. That tells me that we can help ourselves by having cattle that are well nourished with a good mineral program in front of them all summer long, and cattle that have been immunized against the respiratory diseases such as IBR and BVD. These are a couple of things, along with good insect control, fly control, which is certainly one of the ways that eye infections are transmitted from animal to animal, we can really help ourselves in terms of reducing the incidence in our herd. I think if we look at some of these long-term items, we can reduce the incidence of eye infections in our herd over the long haul and really improve our bottom line. We'd like to point you towards the SUNUP website. There's available on that website a fact sheet that tells a whole lot more about eye infections in cattle and ways to treat them. So go to the SUNUP website, that's sunup.okstate.edu. Look under show links, and there you can find a link to that particular fact sheet. I think it'll help you out a lot. And we sure look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Earlier this week, there was a bit of a rally in the price of wheat across Oklahoma. And Kim, what was causing that to happen?
The funds were buying wheat contracts. We talked over the last couple of months. At one time, they were short 111,000 contracts. They're probably short 30 to 40,000 now. They've been buying to get out of those short positions. You buy the market, price goes up. I think the funds are what's driving prices now.
Now, aside from that, what else is happening in the markets right now?
Well, the funds are buying because they have concluded that the wheat price is moving sideways to slightly higher, so they want to get out of the shorts, get whatever profit they can. You look at El Nino, that's probably the biggest factor in the market. Go to Argentina, it's been dry there during the planting season. They're saying that they're going to have less planted acres than last year. Of course, they're expected to get some rain this next week. They may plant some more wheat after that. Australia, if El Nino holds, they're expected to be dry. Their production will be down. Their exports will be down next year. China, El Nino again. They got too much rain, poor quality wheat. They had a big import purchase in the last couple of weeks. They're expected to import twice as much wheat this year as they did last year. Of course, they only imported 55 million bushels last year, but 55 million bushels is 55 off the market. You look at India, if El Nino holds, the monsoons will be weak and their wheat production will be down. Of course, you've got Kazakhstan, Russia, Ukraine, major exporters now. It's been dry in those regions, and again, go back to the weather, and they're expected to export less than they did last year. And all that's going to be a driving force for wheat prices, and they just could go higher.
Now, you listed off all of those countries. How large of a player is the U.S. in the world of wheat?
Well, if you look at the price of wheat, our seasonal price movements, and normally our trend is set in the late August, September time period. That's because the U.S. this year is projected to only produce about 8% of the world's wheat crop. The major exporters, the European Union, the Soviet Union, or the former Soviet Union countries, the Black Sea exporters, their major harvests are during that time period, and that normally sets the price movements. Of course, Argentina and Australia coming in October, November, December influences prices. So we're a major player in the export market, but we're not near as big as we used to be.
Okay, so taking all that into play, the marketing side of it, there has to be some numbers that you're watching for baselines. Well,
I'm watching that September contract at $5 and $6. The December contract's about 60 higher. So if it goes above those, then we'll get an uptrend. Goes below that, it'll go down.
Okay, quickly, marketing suggestions?
Well, I said a third last week. Given what's going on in the market, I might sell a little more than a third, but I'd sure enough sell a third at harvest.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
We're joined by Nurhan Dunford, an oil and oilseed specialist here at the Food and Ag Products Center, to talk about trans fats. We hear a lot about trans fats in the media. Let's start with a basic definition, though.
Trans fat is a chemical form of unsaturated fatty acids, or the oils. Food industry does partially hydrogenates unsaturated fatty acids to improve their oxidative stability, and also some food products require some solid content for functionality.
And what type of foods have trans fats? I'm sure it's the ones that probably taste pretty good.
Very good, yes. Bakery products such as donuts or cakes and cookies, they do contain a significant amount of, they may contain significant amount of trans fat. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration requires that the food processors list the amount of trans fat on the nutrition fact panels on food packages. But we have to keep in mind that the Food and Drug Administration regulation allows food companies to make claims such as no trans or trans-free claims if the amount of trans fat in the product is less than 0.5 gram per serving, serving being 1 tablespoon or 12 to 14 grams of food. So trans-free or no trans label on the food product does not necessarily mean that food is not containing any trans fat. The best way to tell if the food contains trans fat is to look at the ingredient list on the product. If you see partially hydrogenated vegetable oils on the ingredient list, most probably that food would contain trans fats.
So look for that on the label. And then what are some of the risks of eating trans fats regularly?
There is a substantial amount of scientific data indicating that trans fats may increase bad cholesterol levels in human blood, consequently leading to heart disease. Linoleic acid is naturally present in dairy products. That's a trans fat, but that's beneficial because that may lead to weight loss and promote lean muscle formation. There's no concern about the trans fat naturally present in foods, so look for the partially hydrogenated vegetable oils. They might cause some problems.
Okay, we'll check those labels. Nurhan, thanks a lot. We'll see you again soon.
Well, thanks for joining us this week on SUNUP. If you saw something on the show that you like, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu, to learn more about it. And while you're there, check out our social media. I'm Dave Deacon, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.